Hi, welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read in July. Here is my stack of all the physical books that I have read, and then of course I have some books that I read on my Kindle and audiobooks that I don't have with me. I read 12 books but finished 13 technically, because this book, This Summer Will Be Different, I technically finished in July because I read the last like 30 pages on July 1st. But I read the other 300 pages of this book in June, so I'm kind of counting this as a June read, which is why it's not included in the 12 number. But technically I did finish this in July, but we're not really going to talk about it because I talked about it in my June wrap-up. So, setting this one off to the side. And then out of the 6 books that I had on my June TBR, I read 5 of them. So the only one that I did not finish is I Know This Much Is True, and I didn't even start it. So that one can just go away for now. I was on my bed, so no books were harmed in that throw. I'm still kind of learning how to, like, what to say about books without giving away too much. So bear with me as I learn how to say all of the things that I want to say without saying too much. So I think we'll just start with the first book that I read this month and then work my way to the most recent one that I read. First full book that I read was The Secret Life of Bees by Sue Monk Kidd, and I actually reread this. This is a book that I used to love when I was younger, and so I wanted to reread it to see if I still loved it just as much, and I definitely did. I am still keeping it at a 5-star read. It probably is more so like a 4.5 if I was reading it for the first time. That's probably what I would give it, but I'm still going to keep it at a 5-star because all the nostalgia and everything. This book follows Lily, who remembers the day her mom died when she was like 4, and her dad is like a terrible dad, and she basically runs away from home with her maid. If you just heard that, that was my dog. Say hi, Luna. Set in the 50s in the Carolinas, so historical fiction book. So good. Love this one. And the next book that I read was Again. I honestly did not like this book. I gave it 2 stars. It just was very YA to me. Like, obviously it's a YA book, but just me being 26 years old, almost 27, I just felt like it was just a little too YA for me, and I just had the hardest time getting into it. And I even did audio of it, and a lot of the times when a book is really hard for me to concentrate on or get into, I'll do audio, and it makes it a little bit easier just because, I don't know, it's someone else reading it. I feel like you can get into the world a little bit better than just like sitting there reading the pages, like reading the words on the page. So I even did audiobook of this one, and it still was just so hard for me to get into. I just was not a fan of it. So I'm probably not even going to keep this book. That's how much I didn't like it. I think I'll probably donate it to Goodwill. I don't even remember much about what happens in it. The execution of it, I did not enjoy. So, moving on. The next book I read was The Guest List by Lucy Foley. I actually really enjoyed this one. I gave it 3 stars, which I know like maybe doesn't sound like the best, but a 3-star book I would still fully recommend to someone. It just isn't in my tops, you know? Like, I still fully enjoyed it. There's a wedding happening on an island, and someone ends up getting murdered and died. The whole time you're kind of like trying to piece together who killed who, and it's like a dual timeline. So it it goes back and forth between when the guests all first arrive on the island and the start of the wedding to the night of the wedding when someone ends up dead. And so someone on the island was the murderer and someone ended up dead. So it was pretty good. I liked it. I thought the story was interesting. It wasn't my favorite mystery I've ever read, but I would recommend it to other people. The next book I read is Heaven is for Real. This one is a Christian nonfiction. It is about a family whose kid was really, really ill and in the hospital. And while he was in the hospital, he went to heaven and saw Jesus and God, and it was a very moving story about how a church community can come together to help in a time of need for a family. I have a hard time rating nonfiction, so usually I just will automatically give nonfiction books a 4 or 5, just because, especially like memoirs, biographies, like those types, I will always give like a 4 or 5 star because it's someone's life in real life. Like, I don't want to give it like a 2 star. But I did actually really enjoy this one. I was getting kind of emotional while reading it. If you're a Christian, I would recommend it. It's really short, super easy read. My dog is just sitting right in front of me while I'm filming this. She is so cute. She's just sitting literally right at my lap. She's so cute. Oh. Next book that I read was Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. This book, I gave 5 stars. I loved this book. I was eating it up. I was laughing. I was giddy the whole entire time. I just love this so much. This book follows Emma, who is a travel nurse with her best friend. And while she was at one of her assignments, she saw a Reddit Am I the Asshole thread of a guy who every person that he dates ends up, when they break up, they end up finding the love of their life right after. And so he posts about it for a funny little like story. And Emma, the main character, also has the same thing happen to her, where every guy that she dates, when they break up, they end up going on to find the love of their life and get married and find their soulmate. And so she gets in contact with Justin, the guy who made the post, and they're like, if we date each other and we break up, the next person that we date will be our soulmates, because our 2 curses will cancel out of each other. So she and her best friend end up ditching the plan that they were going to go to Hawaii for their next travel nurse. They ditched that and went to Minnesota so that she could date Justin. They're just like, life is getting kind of crazy, but then they're still trying to date each other to break up, but then they actually end up falling in love, like all the things. There were just so many amazing quotes in this book. Like, there was one that I literally sat there and just started crying while reading it, and my husband was sitting on the couch next to me and he was like, why are you crying? And I had to sit there and read the quote to him. This will be in a vlog coming up. If you want to know what the quote was that really made me cry, watch the reading vlog. The next book that I read was City of Souls, which is the 5th book in the Mortal Instruments series. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. I enjoyed it. That's pretty much what I've given every single book in this series. Like, I enjoy the series and I'm slowly collecting all of them from thrift stores and things, but it's not my favorite fantasy series. You know, it's no Throne of Glass. It's no Harry Potter. It's no ACOTAR. Like, it just doesn't live up to the same expectation, or not expectation, but it just doesn't live up to those series, so that's why it's not rating higher. But I do enjoy it. I've listened to every single one of them. I can't really say much about that book because it's so far into the series. Like, it's literally book 5 of 6, so I don't want to give away anything. Then I read A Novel Love Story. I listened to this one as well because I was shocked when my hold became available for this book, because it became available literally like I don't even know, a week after the book released. It's a brand new book release, so I was shocked that I was able to get a copy of it in my library for audio. So I listened to that one and I loved it. I gave it 4 stars. It was so cute. I was enjoying it the whole time. It follows a girl who is on her way to a book club retreat with her book club. They only meet in person once a year because they live in all different places. It's a virtual book club. And while she's on her way there, she gets stuck in a rainstorm in this small town. Her car ends up breaking down, so she has to stay in this small town for a couple days. And while she's there, she realizes that this small town is the small town from her favorite romance book series. So she's meeting all of these characters that she knows and loves, and she knows their whole story. They don't know that they're fictional, like they don't know that they're actually not real and from a book series. And she knows everyone in this town except for this one character. This must be the new character from the new book that didn't get finished because the author passed away before the book could be finished. Trying to piece together who that guy's like love interest is gonna be, was supposed to be in that book. So yeah, I gave that book 4 stars. I really enjoyed it, would highly recommend. Then the next book that I read was Reckless by Lauren Roberts. I had such high expectations for this book. I was so excited. I loved Powerless. I gave it 5 stars. And Powerful, I loved. I was expecting this to also be a 5-star read, and I was so disappointed. I felt like there was nothing happening in the book until like the last 10 pages of the book. And I just felt like I was a cat chasing a mouse in a circle the entire time. It happens a lot in series where, especially trilogies, where the first book is amazing and then the second book is what's called like a bridge book, where you're getting the characters from point A to point B to have an amazing third book and this like final big scene. But to me, like, there's so many series and trilogies that don't have a bridge book, and every single book is amazing on its own. And I just feel like if you have to have a bridge book in a trilogy to get the characters from one point to another, and literally nothing happens in the 300-page book until the last 10 pages, you shouldn't have a trilogy. You should just write a duology. Don't hate me. That's my thoughts on Reckless. Let me know what your thoughts on Reckless were, because I was very disappointed. I gave it 3.5 stars. It still was enjoyable. Like, I still enjoyed being back in the world, and being like with the characters, I still enjoyed all of that, but the actual plot, there was no plot. No plot. Then I read Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. I gave this one 3 stars. I enjoyed it. It was cute. It wasn't my favorite romance. It follows Macy, and she is engaged to marry this guy that she literally just met like 2 months prior, and she ends up running into her childhood best friend, who also was her boyfriend for a little bit, and something crazy happened and they broke up and no contact for like 10 years. But you don't know what that something was that happened. And so it's going back and forth between now they are trying to reconnect and the then timeline where you kind of see how their relationship formed and started. And it was a cute story, but I just I don't know. I've read so many other romances that are so much better, which is why I was only 3 stars. But I would definitely, I would recommend it to people. It was still really good, so. And the cover is just so cute. So, that was that book. Then I read a graphic novel, which was Taproot. I read this, I picked it up from the library. I actually do enjoy reading graphic novels. I think they are a great form of reading, especially when you're just in the mood to sit down and read a whole book in one sitting, or have time to read very much but you want to read something. I think they're a really great way to rack up your numbers pretty quickly for how many books you read, but also when you just want to look at some pretty pictures, you know, I think they can be great. This one says a story about a gardener and a ghost. The back of this says, Blue is having a hard time moving on. He's in love with his best friend. He's also dead. Luckily, Hamill can see ghosts, leaving Blue free to haunt him to his heart's content. But something eerie is happening in town, leaving the local afterlife unsettled. And when Blue realizes Hamill's strange ability may be putting him in danger, Blue has to find a way to protect him, even if it means leaving him. I thought it was a cute little story. I gave it 3 stars. Wasn't like the best graphic novel I have ever read. If you're wanting to get into graphic novels, I would highly recommend Heartstopper. Those were the first ones that I read, and I loved them. I also really enjoyed Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell, I think is the author of that one, but would highly recommend Heartstopper or Pumpkinheads for your first graphic novel experience. And then I read The Night Circus by Erin Montgomery, and I enjoyed this one. I gave it 3.5 stars. It was a really cool atmosphere. I've never read a book based in a circus before, so it was really fun to get to experience that. I've also never really been to the circus, so I got to experience it for the first time in this book. There's 2 different characters that both have magic, and they are competing against each other in a form of competition. They don't know what exactly the competition is or how to win it, but the circus is made to be a venue for this competition. Both have to keep adding to the circus with their magic. They make new things to add to the circus, and it just keep trying to one-up each other. And I thought it was really interesting. I love books with magic and competitions and all that kind of stuff, so it was really enjoyable. I liked it. But the one thing that kept it from being a 4-star versus a 3.5 was just that it was kind of a little slow at times, and it was hard to follow a little bit because it would bounce between like a 10-year time span with like 5 different point of views. So because it was a little hard to follow at times, I ended up giving it a 3.5 instead of a 4, but I would still really recommend it. It was really good, especially if you like books with magic, competitions, the circus atmosphere. Like, you definitely enjoy the book. And then the last book that I read this month was a little novella, was Rosie and the Dreamboat by Sally Thorne. It's a little novella. It was literally only like 43 pages. I didn't even expect to read this one in July, but I was just scrolling on my Kindle looking to see what I wanted to read, and it was on Prime Reading, and I already had it downloaded, and I started it and literally sat there and finished it in like an hour, a little over an hour, right before I went to bed, because it's only 43 pages. So it was really easy to binge and read, and I read it literally the 31st at like 10 o'clock at night. So it barely made the list for July, but I enjoyed it. I gave it like a 2.5, which seems kind of low, but it wasn't a full 3-star because I just I'm never gonna think about it again. It was like a cute little fun story, but it wasn't anything special, and it was a novella, so it was only 43 pages or something like that. Like, it was almost a short story. And so I just feel like with a book that short, you can't really get, I feel like it can't really get higher than a 3-star, because it's just like, not much can happen in that time period. But it follows this girl named Rosie who it's on Valentine's Day, and her sister go to a spa to have like a little girls' day to celebrate her sister's promotion, and they go into those like float float things, and Rosie gets stuck in it. The float tank malfunctions and they can't get it opened, and there's no emergency latch on the inside, and so she gets stuck in it, and these firefighters come to try to get her out. And one of the firefighters' main job is literally just to help keep people calm in situations that are stressful. And so her and this guy are just talking back and forth through this float tank, and they kind of fall in love. So those are all of the 12 books that I read in July. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in my next one.